I was driving down here to the shop here yesterday.
Uh-huh.
The street was,
You can tell the teacher's parking lot is like, you can tell it looks like it's been flooded. So it must have been bad for a while. All right, let me see here. Yes, so put that off till Monday, right? So don't forget. And I'll mention that. I'll go over that stuff later this hour. Good. Let's finish here with this credo and then the apology. We'll start on apology a little bit. We left off here talking about the things that are whole. Yes, thank you. You put them.
You put it in the garage?
No, put it on the table, sir. In case somebody asks me for a receipt later. What came first? Holiness of the gods, or gods came first and holiness later? Okay. So it's the nature of all that. On page 11 of this, if you look into that first kind of full paragraph on 11, there's a couple of Greek words that are translated, and they're translated, but then they have in parenthesis the Greek word they're working from. Okay. These are two of the different words of more than 4 or 5 different variations of the word love that exist. And so if you notice from the New Testament, there's a kind that sounds almost kind of strange in English. Jesus keeps asking Peter, do you love me? And it's just kind of repetitive, and because in the Greek it has a richer meaning to it. This is the kind of love. Anyway, I'm only using a reference point. Just the translator's note is all it is. But below that second Greek word, though, on 11, Socrates says, "Thus you appear to me, Euthyphro, when I ask you what's the essence of holiness, or piety, to offer an attribute only and not the essence." So you give me like a part of it, but not the whole thing that underlies and makes all things to be holy or pious. That attribute being loved by all the gods, but you still refuse to explain to me the nature of piety. So here he goes. And it seems to be a workable tactic for Socrates, as he liked in other dialogues too, to keep a lot of kind of maybe unnecessary praise on the person, almost to kind of encourage them to stay with them, to keep trying at this. And therefore, if you please, I will ask you not to hide your treasure, but to tell me once more what piety or holiness really is, whether dear to the gods or not, for that is a matter about which I will not quarrel. And what is impiety? That's, I think, the third time he's asking this question. And maybe you see the first kind of break a little bit for Euthyphro, getting to the point where he doesn't really know. Quite eloquently, he says, "I really do not know, Socrates, how to tell you what I mean. For somehow or other, our arguments, on whatever ground we rest them, seem to turn around and walk away." Well, maybe not good arguments don't do that, maybe, but his are there. Okay. Then on page 13, he does something, again, I'm going to throw a biblical reference in here. He uses it's also a common tactic in other dialogues too, on page 13, where he uses, and for someone like Euthyphro, who was well-educated and all that, he didn't really need this, but this would work when he was talking to maybe lesser educated people, but it would work with anybody. And maybe it's meant to be insulting, I don't know. But he uses very kind of common, everyday examples to make his point. Things that are relatable, and maybe although Euthyphro hasn't done some of these things that we're going to talk about here, but they're things that they would have witnessed and seen every day, and they would have known about, somewhat about. The same way that Jesus uses, not in an insulting way, but uses parables to speak in sometimes, right? And to explain things. People remember stories better than they remember, just teaching and, fact giving and all that. So he uses these stories, and the stories are always like relatable things, like being stiffed by your employer when they hire you to do a job. Yeah, man, that sucks. That happened to me one time. I don't know. People can relate to this. Or you've got 3 brothers, and one of them just goes off and just lives a crazy life and comes begging back, and you know that story. I mean, it's relatable, right? It's something we can, well, he does this here. So and on Euthyphro's, where he says yes, at the top of 13, and his next line, piety or holiness then appears to be that part of justice which attends to the gods. And it's this one word, attends, that gets Socrates' attention. And there is the other part of justice which attends to men. So this idea of attention being given to the gods, being that which is pious, or would be something pious, he says, well, that's good, Euthyphro, yet still there's a little point about which I should like to have further information. What is the meaning of attention? For attention can hardly be used in the same sense when applied to the gods as when applied to other things, like these very common kind of earthly things. For instance, and then he starts in with people who deal with horses. What would you call this? Equestrian. All right. Equestrians.
Equestrians.
I found out a few years ago, it's been more than a few, but that there was a girl that was a girl in my class that was missed a few days, and she competed in rodeo. Yeah, right here at Tasha. And well, she didn't compete here, but she was. Yeah, they tore up the neck turf on the field, but other than that, you know, yeah, no animals were harmed in making this rodeo. But the anyway, she was gone for like 3 days. It was unexcused until the parents like I don't know if they didn't call or maybe they forgot it. But then when they did call or write a note or whatever they did, they put down that she was at an equestrian event. I told her I think her parents are just the most brilliant people I've ever met, because rodeo at Tasha is unexcused. An equestrian event, though, that's an excused absence. We understand that. You must attend such things. And it's as good as a doctor's appointment. So, all right. So people who deal with horses. Well, does anyone have a horse? Or I'm not trying to pick on you. You have a horse. Okay. So thank you. Brenda, what all does you have to do for this horse? Maybe you don't do it, but what all has to be done for this horse that you have? You just throw it out in the field and give it some food every once in a while?
You gotta clean their hooves all the time.
Okay, all right. See, I didn't know that.
And then if you want to ride them, you have to do a lot of stuff to them, but we don't ride them very much, so we don't.
Do you know what would have to be done if you were going to ride a horse? Like,
I know that you have to like constantly lead them around and ride them a lot, so they don't they keep used to being doing anything.
Right, they have to
doing
be.
what you say.
So if it was a wild horse, it had to be broken and trained to be able to do that at all.
Yeah.
But then you can't leave a horse in the field for a year and expect. See, I don't know any of this. And then jump on the back of the horse, and the horse would just all of a sudden remember all the cues and. So they have to be kept up.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part. I mean,
Shoeing, is that a?
we don't do it. But
Okay.
a lot of people do.
All right.
We just cut the nose.
Okay. What about they in their stall, it's got to be cleaned out?
Yeah, we just have a pen. We don't
Okay.
have. They won't go. We made a barn, but they wouldn't go.
Okay. You had to make a barn, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's just a little one, but they don't like it.
The horses have to be, I see people brushing horses and taking a hose to them, kind of, and I guess
Yeah.
bathing them. Okay.
Occasionally.
All right. Got to be fed, of course. Trained. Okay. So that's quite a bit. So doing all these things, then he's going to make the point here, and that there is a certain art, as he says here, an art of horsemanship. There is actually, I think there's even a degree in this, by the way, at OSU. Someone look that up for me, please. It's in the agriculture department at OSU. It's like equestrian management, or it's got some kind of fancy thing like that. It should be like Bachelor of Arts in Horse Management. That should be art of horse management, horsemanship. Equine. Oh, I love that. Several degrees, several Bachelor of Science degrees. There you go. Socrates is ahead of his time here. Yes. Yes. You know, that when I went to OSU, there were a lot of students that were from Oklahoma and surrounding states that were studying agriculture and different, all the varieties of agriculture. But there were also a huge number of foreign students there that were studying. And for what it's worth, I don't know if you want to put this in the Oklahoma brochure or not, but OSU really does have a good agricultural school. People come from all over the world to go to school there to learn from that. But I remember meeting people like from the Middle East and from Europe and from at the time, people from Eastern Europe, but from Asia, and they came there to study, something in the agriculture department. All right, well, back to horses here. So whenever we give attention to horses, like Brendan was all the things we said to do, that horse is improved somehow. Something improves that horse. The horse is happier. The horse is actually improved maybe for our benefit also, because horses can do, some horses do work, right? They can pull something like draft horses, or you have horses that can get you somewhere if you wanted to ride a horse that goes somewhere. There's something that happens. There's a benefit that accrues then in some way to this because of the attention that we give to the horse. All right, something it says about the people who are qualified, I'm reading his words, qualified to attend to dogs. Yeah, right. Well, they train them. They got to do a lot of things in horses and then maybe have a specific thing you train them to do. Maybe they're hunting dogs. He mentions people who are huntsmen. Well, you've got to have these dogs trained so they'll after you kill something, they'll go out and get it, or they'll point to it, or whatever the training is for that particular dog. Good. Okay, so there's some benefit that accrues from that then. Then you have people who attend to oxen. That's got to be a high-paying career. People who, it should be very dangerous, attending to oxen. Again, same thing, something happens. There's some benefit that happens from giving them attention. And then he adds it right in here. And as holiness or piety is the art of attending to the gods, as you just said, Euthyphro, that would be your meaning. Euthyphro thinks he's getting somewhere. Yes. And is not attention always designed for the good or benefit of that to which the attention is given? As in the case of the horses, you may observe when they are attended to by the horsemen, they are benefited and improved, are they not? True. Well, okay. So is there some way that we, by giving attention to the gods, whatever that might mean, following their will, following their guidance, doing the things they ask us to do, sacrificing, ritualistic, whatever it is there some improvement to the gods? Is there something that we do? There's some benefit that accrues to the gods from doing that. And just like it does with giving attention to other things. So at the top of 14, and does piety or holiness, which has been defined as the art of attending to the gods, benefit or improve them? Would you say that when we do a holy act, you make any of the gods better? Well, that's always tricky when you get into improving. You're a good God, but you could be better. And I'm going to do something to make you a better God. Typically, that's not the kind of God we want to. People don't want to worship so much. Gods are perfect in so many ways, and maybe in every way, depending on. But they don't have the need for our attention. Maybe not the need for us at all. Okay, so they get into that then. So is there anything we can do to improve the gods? On top of 15, Euthyphro really starts to break a little bit here. And so I've told you already, Socrates, that to learn all these things accurately will be very tiresome. No, he has not said that. At least not in this dialogue. And that's a big indicator that maybe they've had a similar discussion some other time in their lives, and they've met at the top. And he said this to him then, and now he's repeating it now, but not in this dialogue, because he's never said that before. To learn all these things would be very tiresome. Let me simply say that piety of learning how to please the gods in word and deed by prayer and sacrifice, that is piety, which is the salvation of families and states, just as the impious, which is unpleasing to the gods, is their ruin and destruction. Well, in the middle of the next section, Socrates says, had you only answered me, I should have learned of you by this time the nature of piety. Now, as the asker of the question is so dependent upon the answerer, when he follows on, hey, to the pious, do you mean that they are a sort of science of praying and sacrificing? Yes, I do. And sacrificing is giving to the gods, and prayer is asking of the gods. Yes, Socrates. Upon this view, then, piety is a science of asking and giving. Once again, Euthyphro is getting somewhere. You understand me capitally, Socrates. I like that. You need to use the adverb capitally more often. Capitally correct. Socrates' second line from the bottom of 15. Then piety, Euthyphro, is an art which gods and men have of doing business with one another. The gods say, you do something for me, you sacrifice, you do whatever ritual we want you to do at this time of the year, you do this, you do that, you pray to me, and I'll do something for you. Yeah. Robbie has a pencil I want to buy, I've got $1, I give him $1, he gives me the pencil, right? It's a transaction. Very transactional, this idea of praying, sacrificing, and receiving. Like the prosperity gospel that many televangelists like to preach on TV. If you'll just sow a seed with this ministry, the scriptures tell you that you'll be blessed tenfold. So if you were to sow, let's just say you were to sow $10,000 today with this ministry, very soon God will bless you with $100,000. That's transactional type God, right? That's not. Even Euthyphro is offended by this idea. He says, that's an expression which you may use if you like. Socrates kind of punches right back and says, I have no particular liking for anything but the truth. I wish, however, that you would tell me what benefit accrues to the gods from our gifts. That they are the givers of every good to us is clear, but how we can give any good thing to them in return is far from being clear. If they give everything and we give nothing, that must be an affair of business in which we have greatly the advantage of them. Well, that's a good theological discussion. They don't get very far with it, though. They get kind of wound down here towards the end of 16. You can see we're coming to the end. And Socrates' last line on 16, then we must begin again and ask, what is piety? Number 5. And by my count, it's the 5th time, maybe 6th. That's an inquiry which I shall never be weary of pursuing as far as in me lies, and I entreat you not to scorn me, but to apply your mind to the utmost and tell me the truth. For if any man knows, you are he, and therefore I shall not detain you like Proteus until you tell. For if you had not certainly known the nature of piety and impiety, I'm confident that you would have never, on behalf of a serf, have charged your aged father with murder. You would not have run the risk of doing wrong in the sight of the gods, and you would have had too much respect for the opinions of men. I am sure, therefore, that you know the nature of piety and impiety. Speak out then, my dear Euthyphro. Do not hide your knowledge. Again, he's trying to... another time, Socrates, for I'm in a hurry, I must go. Basically, he's saying, I would rather prosecute my father for murder than talk to you another minute. I have this image in my head of Socrates has got hold of his, the arm of his toga or something. He's like, gotta go now, kind of jerking away. Well, yeah. If we do get a chance to meet again, but I'm hoping to the gods that you don't walk out of this courtroom again. I don't know, but maybe to use the first thinking. All right, that's enough. I've had enough of you. Socrates says, alas, my companion, do you leave me in despair? I was hoping you would instruct me in the nature of piety and impiety so that I might have cleared myself of Meletus and his indictment. Then I might have proved to him that I had been converted by Euthyphro and had done so with rash innovation and speculation in which I had indulged through ignorance. Thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't. And Euthyphro just straightened me out just before I walked in here. And was about to lead a better life. Well, good. But he doesn't get that satisfaction, no? Okay, let's talk about apology. So just like in our trials, if any of you have been to a courtroom or watched, or if you have been involved in a trial, it's even at this time, same thing today, I think it's true. I can't imagine a trial working any other way, actually, anywhere. But the prosecution goes first. The defendant has the right to hear not only the charges, but the proof that they have. Yeah, with how they're going to lay out this story. That way, the defense has a chance to kind of counter what the prosecution says. But most importantly, though, they have the right to know where the prosecution is going with this case, what proof they have, what witnesses they have. This is what's happened here. Although we do not have a written account of the prosecution side, as I was just saying, the way that Socrates addresses each one of these points that the prosecution makes, we have a pretty good idea what was said on the prosecution side. So all we have is this word, this thing called apology, which I haven't said this already. Apology, if you're in my class last quarter, you already know. But apology does not mean Socrates is going to fall to his knees and beg for mercy or anything like that. But it's a different use of the word. It's strange how it's kind of been turned around, but apology almost means the opposite of that. It's a defense. It's his defense. From the Greek word apologia, which means defense. So to me, it seems like it's the opposite, right? Like you're going to apologize for what you did, or you're going to defend what you did. All right. But apology has nothing to do with, there's no apologies made here. If anything, Socrates becomes even maybe more belligerent with his accusers as things go on. But apologia means defense in Greek. Apparently, I'll just say this one thing. Apparently, one of the things that his accusers said and warned the people in the assembly there who will be voting on his guilt or innocence and the condemnation eventually, they told them to be careful. That Socrates is very crafty with words. He enjoys twisting things around and making you think that maybe he's not as bad as he really is. Or that the weaker idea, like I said from Aristophanes, the weaker idea is the better one. And that he's very eloquent. And the force of his eloquence alone may twist your thinking about this, what he really is all about. So be careful, be on your guard, be careful. For whatever reason, that either offends Socrates when he hears that, or he knows that's a good point, because I'm pretty good at that. Maybe that's what he's thinking. I don't know. But he directs his first statement not at any evidence against him, but at that accusation that he uses words to twist people's minds and make people think, he sounds pretty good to me, though. That's where he goes first. He says, "Have you felt, O men of Athens, and hearing the speeches of my accusers, I cannot tell, but I know that their persuasive words almost made me forget who I was." Such was the effect of them, and yet they've hardly spoken a word of truth. But many as their falsehoods were, there was one of them which quite amazed me. I mean, when they told you to be upon your guard and not to let yourselves be deceived by the force of my eloquence, they ought to have been ashamed of saying this, because they were sure to be detected as soon as I opened my lips and displayed my deficiency. Really, that is the most eloquent way someone can say, "I'm not that good of a speaker, really." That's some pretty flowery talk there, right? That's off the top of your head. That's like saying, "You're right." That's like shooting a shot across the bow of a ship, shoot a shell just across. We can hit you if we want to. Yeah? That's what that is. That's letting you know, yeah, I'm not good. Yeah? But I'm going to act like I'm humble. That's what I think. How much of this is he really upset about? I don't know. How much of it is sarcasm? I don't know. How much of it is revenge or vengeance? I have no idea. Can't get into his head about that. But I think that's a pretty smart way to begin things. Well, he tells them he's never been in a courtroom before. He's 70-something years old. I don't know the ways. I don't know how things work here. So please, he's basically, like people might do, is asking the judges for some latitude. Also, he's defending himself. He doesn't have an attorney or anyone to represent him. It's him. I'd have to look and see. I don't know how common that would have been then. Today, you can defend yourself as well if you want to. You can even question yourself on a witness stand. But judges really, really are reluctant to let defendants, especially in capital cases, especially, because it just leads to well, not in this system, but in our system, it leads to a whole slew of appeals that can be, oh, he wasn't competently represented. Yeah, he represented himself. You guys know Ted Bundy, right? The serial murderer. He represented himself at his trial. At least in the first trial that he had, the one in Washington State, I think. The judge let him do it, and the judge gave him some broad, because he didn't know the way things work legally. Attorneys will tell you, and I think this is kind of a self-preservation thing, so they stay operating as a species. I mean, sorry. No, so they can kind of, keep getting money coming in. That's what. They say that anyone who defends themselves in a trial has a fool for a client. That's a saying among attorneys.
So you're allowed to question yourself?
Yes, you can probably find us on YouTube where Ted Bundy questioned himself on the stand. Well, I'll tell you right away, one thing that a defense attorney would probably do in a murder trial would tell you, do not take the stand. Very few murderers actually get on the stand and testify at their own trial. It can only go bad. And it might help you a tiny bit, but there's many, many more chances for it to go wrong. And of course, you're the one on trial, so you're emotional, but you're involved, obviously personally, and maybe your life's on the line, maybe eventually. So typically, you think about whatever murder trials you've ever kind of halfway followed in recent times, and it's very rare that well, I say very rare, but I think most attorneys, a lot of times the defendant will insist, that they want to be questioned. Sometimes they do it because they're really innocent, maybe. Sometimes they do it because they're arrogant and they think they can think circles around the person who's going to question them, and they're just going to. But it rarely goes well if that happens, if they testify. OJ didn't testify in his trial. That was probably pretty smart. It's hard to explain, Brendan. Why is my blood and my ex-wife's blood and her boyfriend's blood at my house soaked in my socks? That's a typical kind of thing. But I'm not in the law school. That's the first question I would have. Yeah. How did that happen? How did you get that blood? Did they come over earlier and playing with knives or something? What's going on? How did you get? It's not funny now. It's not funny really, but I mean, it's it kind of shows you, wow. I don't think we talked about them, but there's maybe we did. There's one of the sophists who have this very cynical approach that, we'll get to it later, I'll say that later. We are going to talk about it. But this idea that justice might have different tiers to it, maybe, since you can afford all these high-priced attorneys, they can talk about force of eloquence, F.Lee Bailey, man, he defended the Boston Strangler back in the 50s or something.
You had me good serial killers.
You're right. I agree with you. I have a theory about it. Can I tell you what it is? I think it's much harder to murder someone now than it used to be and get away with it.
I feel like people would still be trying, though.
I think they
Right.
are. They just
I think they get busted too fast.
You know what? I believe in American ingenuity. And as fast as the technology is moving, I think that we as people have brains in this country, we can move faster.
The question is, how many people are dying are being killed by serial killers because they're being found as heart attacks?
Right. Maybe you got to get craftier here. You got to induce a cardiac arrest somehow. The whole gun stabbing thing, that's old school. That's old school.
There's nobody getting caught anymore.
You got to go Putin style these people. You got to inject them with you got to inject them with some radioactive material. Let them go slowly.
Well, you heard the guy they poisoned that finally went back to the country. They're
Yeah.
arresting him for missing his parole hearing while he was in a coma after the poison.
Yeah, was he in Germany or something in a coma, and
Yeah.
they brought him back to help. That would be the last place I would travel to after this.
Had choice because they couldn't stop him.
He's like Rasputin or something, this guy, right? I mean, but Rasputin, they just did normal stuff to. This guy, they literally, he had,
He is not a good person.
maybe none of them are, I don't know, but,
They seem to name to murder children.
yes. Well, no, listen, I'm not, I think that OJ killed his wife and her boyfriend too. I mean, this is not these are not nice people, but, yeah, I don't know. But my theory though, Will, is that it's just more difficult to get away with now. But since what was the last big serial murder? Yeah,
How about the Atlanta,
I think Golden State.
Olympics?
Golden State, but of course he did his things a long time ago. He just got caught though. That's the thing, the technology keeps moving. Like, you may have acted in a way at that time that was ahead of technology, right? You may have wore latex gloves and had a hazmat suit on when you committed the crime. You didn't shed any DNA all over the place and you don't find your hair. But over time though, like the technology just keeps moving forward while you can't go back and make the crime updated. You can't update the crime in some way, right? So that's the problem with listening. What a morbid topic, right?
Well,
Yeah.
now it's like people are going all at once now instead of spreading it out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Serial killer, more
Yeah, there's a serial, I don't know what the definition is,
Yeah,
but
and shootings.
yeah, like, so if you kill 40 people in one 10-minute period,
That's like a two type of it.
right, that would be, right. I just wonder, like, I don't know if that's the definition of a serial killer though, like,
Serial killer has to be.
I think it has to be spread out, maybe that's just the label we've given it.
And they have to leave like weird clues.
Yeah, they have to taunt the police with letters and stuff.
Yeah.
The last, I mean, this, I'm sure I'm missing someone big, but the last one I remember they got caught and actually there was it was long after he had done the murders was the guy in Wichita, the BTK killer. And that would have been early 2000s maybe 99 or 2000, so before you guys were born probably, but it was, but he killed people through the 70s, 80s, but only like every couple of years he would kill somebody. It was, he was pretty, and he would write letters to police and he would send a copy of the driver's license of one of the people that he killed, because he took it from the scene. But then they found out later on he copied it like at Wichita State University, and then took that copy to another, and then copied it again. It was like 3 or 4 copy machines got hold of it, so they couldn't do anything from the paper, I don't know. Maybe there's some clues somewhere in there that he seemed to know. Well, he got away with it but what got him though was hubris though. A professor at not Wichita State, there's another smaller college in Wichita, I think, a law professor, wrote a book about the murders, many years, and that drew him out somehow. Like, he didn't like the idea of someone else telling his story. And he started submitting chapters of his own story in his own words to one of the TV networks. Yes, yes. And I don't know how many chapters. And then he asked now this is where technology's not really catching up with you, you're just stupid, but he stopped worrying about all that, and because I think he hadn't killed anybody in I don't know, 15, 18, it was a long time that no one heard about him. And so that's what made this law professor write the book. He gave an assignment to different groups in his class to research a certain murder, and one of them said, I want you guys to research the BTK murders. And these people said, what? Like, they didn't know what he was talking about. And he couldn't believe that people didn't know, who from Wichita didn't know about that. People didn't talk about it. But anyway, so the BTK killer communicated through classified ads in the newspaper with the police. And he sent them a letter and said, be watching for the Wichita Eagle, whatever it is, and it's classified. So he put an ad in it, basically asked, in their coded language they have with each other, something about if he uses like a floppy disk or something, or a CD or whatever, and I send you, will you be able to trace what computer it comes from? And of course, the police responded, no, we could never tell what it came from. And of course, then he responded very quickly with some kind of device. And of course, it's encoded in there pretty easily, I guess, to find. And it was at a church. He was the president of the Lutheran Church of the congregation in north of Wichita. And they realized that who had access, they called who has access to this office, who has access to this computer, and narrowed it down to this guy. And
Doesn't he have like 3 kids?
he had 2 kids, and there was this daughter who the FBI, before they arrested him, convinced that she gave, there was DNA, they took her DNA and matched it with the DNA from this thing. Yeah, that's how they, yeah. No, we can never, doesn't tell us what computer you use. Are you kidding? There's no IP address or like that. So that probably put a lot of serial killers on hold, I think.
Computers?
Well, that event there, like that conversation. Well, we better wait this out a little bit and see. Put the heat die down.
I wonder how many of them just like never got caught.
A lot, I think. Like the Zodiac killer in California, he never was
They
caught.
just busted another one of his letters.
He's
It's a route
a
that doesn't have
Texas
it.
senator now, though.
What's that?
He's a Texas senator now.
I thought that was the guy who killed John F. Kennedy. The Zodiac, they never, so they released a new letter, a letter that they always have.
Someone busted another one of the
What do you say they busted
ciphers,
him?
like they
Oh, the cipher, right.
Another one of his letters, and it's just like the ramblings of a madman.
Right.
Like they got through another one.
Right. There's several that have not been. There was one of them, one of the early ones that like a married couple. They're both school teachers. They've been in the Navy. Maybe one of them had actually done something with cryptography before, and at the kitchen table, like worked out this cipher that the police haven't been able to work out. But they were hoping it would give a name or something, but it didn't. No.
They still have like a bunch though, don't they?
They have a bunch, and they have a bunch of letters, and they don't know for sure. Some of them may or may not actually be from the person, but they never. Well, they might have detained. I don't think they ever arrested anybody. There was no trial, that's for sure. And then it just kind of stopped. And that's what they thought happened in Wichita. That's usually what happens with serial murders: is that you die, like just natural causes, or you get arrested for something else. That's why the murders stop. Or you moved on to some other town or some other state or country. That's why it's not happening anymore. And that's what the police have kind of come to, think happened in Wichita. Because the nature apparently of serial murder is that it's a compulsion. I mean, that you only hold it back for so long, and then you've got to do this again. And so after 15 or 20 years, they were like, well, you must have. Maybe we'll never find out. He could be gone, dead, or in prison for something else. And then he started communicating, and he had like a little, that's what they did. The police always hold something back, he had a little signature he put at the bottom of his letters. It was like a logo, like the letters BTK, like very, yeah, you could use it for, it would have been a great logo for a company or something. And he came up with it. And the police never released that to the press. So then they do that a lot, right? So that way they know that they're talking to the right guy. And when he wrote that letter for all those years, I guess the police just got like hair on the back of their neck, saying like, "Oh my God, no one knows about this." Like,
what did he stop for? Did they ever?
He said, I don't really follow. By the way, I'm not going to scare you too much, but I lived in Wichita when all that started, and it did scare me back then. And when he started murdering, so that's why I kind of kept up with it. He said that the last person he murdered, that he was just barely able to kill her because he killed by strangling. And it takes a tremendous amount of strength to really, yeah. And so he realized that at his age that he was not able to, if he tried it again, he didn't know if he would be able to do it. Like he had the strength anymore to do it. So when he was younger, it was, still hard, but he killed the whole family one time, and that's why he said he quit.
You would think people would just move on to like an easier method.
Right. Yeah, I guess that was his thing, that whatever compulsion he had.
Not at all.
Right. Strangling is a really intimate, and like stabbing is a,
It's incredibly inefficient.
well, it is, I agree.
This really does.
But I think there's an intimacy about it, actually
There
having
is.
the hold of the person's throat and feeling their their parts of themselves being, you feel all that, and you feel it stop, you know?
Why it's the
All-
most common
Why?
strangle.
How did we start talking about this?
Because Socrates is
Ted
getting,
Bundy defended himself.
Ted Bundy defended himself.
Ah.
And then Will said, you know, I don't feel like we've had a good serial. Will said, can you believe it? I don't think we've had a good serial murder for a long time. Amelia, I'm sorry, cut you off. What do you say about the,
When you're strangling someone, like, first of all, you're not stopping them from like hitting you.
right, or picking you, or, yeah,
They can very easily attack
right.
you.
Well, didn't
Right.
they like tie them up?
You are using your fingers, physically just your fingers.
Yeah.
To crush a very strong
Right.
area.
Yeah, yeah, sure, that's right.
Your finesse is incredibly sturdy. Trying to use just finger strength to close
Right.
it off.
Right.
You'd be better off literally just using his thumbs and working in there.
Look at us trying to get away with do different fights.
Right, like very,
Vary your methods and your.
We should write a research paper about this.
Can this be my senior
Senior thesis, right here.
We could actually write about this because we talked about it in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, there's like 18 papers about serial murderers. We'll see. Oh, great, this is being recorded too, all right. So, anybody can watch this. Something happens in my, sphere of the world, they're gonna come after me. Weren't you lecturing one day about how there hadn't been a good serial murder for a long time?
It's kind of weird that you would get there in a philosophy class.
How did you twist the subject around to that topic?
One of us becomes a serial killer, also you or the other.
You can assume right away that I'm the one so Quiz Monday, I'm the one who influenced you.
All your fault.
You were just trying to impress me.
I wanted to get talked about in your future philosophy.
Right. So I had this one guy, he seemed like a pretty nice guy. Then,
It's like, man, we're at my favorite lesson of the day, Socrates defending himself. Who? Well, I have a story for you.
I got a story.
Everyone's like, how do you know this? And I say, well, I did take self-defense classes.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is. But I
The first
think
thing they say is if they try and strangle you from the front, they're doomed. Just kick them until
Right.
they stop.
right. This guy in Wichita would get them to allow. He would tell them that he was going to do something else. They would allow him, which is to tie them up. That was the bind part of the BTK. So they were not as free to. But still, there's some kind of something in his psyche. That was what he needed to do to get his thrill, was to have to do that kind of.
At least he wasn't literally getting off on it, because a lot of them do.
But that was this guy's. That was his point. That's what he was doing. I know it's a sick topic, but yep, I got you.
We just took a math test.
Yeah.
And I guessed on like 4 of the questions, and I got every single one of them right, and I guessed one. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm going to postpone the test. I'll tell you that.
You are?
Yeah, to Monday,
Alright, sounds good.
unless there's any objection.
No, never an objection about that.
If there's no objection, it's so ordered.
What is it?
The jurors may retreat to their